Hello and welcome back everyone, we Weeb Online, and today I'm gonna continue the story What If Naruto Was a Cyber Demon Part 6. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
After entering the first cargo room at the entrance to the underground maintenance area, Naruto frowned and looked through his supplies. Okay, I have 2 grenades left. 3 magazines for the MP5K. 5 magazines for the SOCOM. Most of the magazine for the Dragonov left, plus 2 extras. He laughed and said, "Yeah, that's not going to help me much down here." "At least you have weapons and bullets," Meryl said as she heard Naruto complain that he was running out of ammunition. "I don't even have any extra ammunition for my Desert Eagle anymore," Naruto said. As he went through his other gear, Naruto told her, "That's a shit gun for you anyway." He didn't notice the glare she was giving him when she said, "The damn thing jams too easily, it's too loud to be useful for this, it's heavy, and the recoil would kick your ass." He looked up from taking stock to ask Meryl, "And yours looked brand new when I saw it this morning." Had she ever shot that thing before? When a guy her age told her she couldn't use her new gun, Meryl said, "No, she had red cheeks from being told off." She had only used her Desert Eagle once, when Psycho Mantis took over her body and made her shoot at Snake. "I've been using the FAMAs the whole time until Snake and I fought Mantis. What does it matter? I point a gun at someone and fire, and they die. It's that simple," she said. He replied with a sneer, "Not when the other person is good at what they do. You should make sure you're good with whatever weapon you want to use before you use it in the field. Stupid stuff like that gets you killed." Naruto knew. He had been hit with so many bullets that they would have fit in an assault rifle magazine. This was mostly because of bad habits that he had mostly given up by this point. "Yeah, well I have to," Meryl began to say, but a noise in another part of the room interrupted her. The noise woke Meryl up, so she pulled out the Desert Eagle they were talking about and fired it at the noise. She missed her target, and an alarm went off before the electronics shook. They showed a scared Otakon, whose glasses were falling off his face and who said, "That was the 3rd time I've almost been killed tonight. Even though this stealth camo is helping me, I might want to stop using it." As he looked at Naruto and Meryl with worry, he thought. While Meryl was lowering her gun, Naruto laughed and said, "You see? You can't hit the broad side of a barn with that thing if you don't get time to aim." She pouted at him, but Naruto just rolled his eyes and said, "You're lucky there aren't guards stationed around all of this useless crap or they'd be all over chasing us out of here right now." He then pointed to Otakon and said, "This is Dr. Hal Emmerich, but he likes to be called Otakon, I guess. He's been helping Snake out for a while." Meryl tried to defend herself by saying, it wasn't that big of a deal, but even she knew that her argument about her attempted shot wouldn't hold water. The gun was louder than Naruto's SOCOM pistols, even without their silencers. The room also echoed, and she could still hear the shot in her ears. When Naruto saw Otakon, he walked past all the boxes and other junk in the room and asked, "What are you doing here? The guards down below are going to be out for blood." "I wouldn't risk going down there if I were you, even with the stealth camouflage." According to Otakon, Snake had already been through this area. "Oh, Snake's already been through here." "Yeah, the snowfield was free and clear, so he was able to get right over here after getting out of the communication towers. Last thing I heard, he beat Vulcan Raven in the storage room down below," he said. Noting that Otakon was rubbing the back of his neck, Naruto asked, "And by beat, you mean killed, don't you?" Otakon replied, "Don't say beat when you mean killed. There's a difference." He apologized for sounding so harsh, it wasn't that important. Raven had never done anything bad to Naruto, except for turning his back on him and starting the rebellion with Liquid. He never really had a problem with the shaman. The man's death was really sad, but Snake owed neither him nor Raven anything, and Naruto thought Raven had chosen his side a long time ago based on what Sniper Wolf told him. If Otakon had done something to upset Naruto, he said, "Sorry." The man didn't want to upset anyone who could fight a whole platoon of genome soldiers. But Snake's really close to the hangar with Metal Gear Rex. "I'm surprised that Sniper Wolf hasn't tried to stop him yet," he said. The man seemed glad that this hadn't happened yet. Naruto and Meryl both seemed to cheer up when they heard that Snake had pretty much cleared the way to the lower levels. "That's great," Meryl told Otakon. "This whole nightmare is almost over. She then looked at Naruto and said, "He does have a point though. I would have figured that Sniper Wolf would have tried to stop either Snake or you by now." Meryl wasn't looking forward to another run-in with Wolf now that she knew who shot her. As he calmly told them that Wolf wouldn't be a part of anything else that night, Naruto said, "I dealt with her already. She's not going to be fighting anyone." In an interested voice, Otakon asked, "You had a fight with Sniper Wolf and won? What about what they did together?" He knew that he wasn't making up the friendship between them. In Foxhound, they didn't act the way they did with each other around anyone else. He seemed to think it would be easy to go against someone so close to him. What did he mean when he said, he handled her? "Yeah, me. Who else would have done it? Why does everyone think I can't fight any of Foxhound? I'm not their intern or something," Naruto said with a dry look. "Okay, technically I was, but that's not the point." In fact, Otakon hadn't even meant that. He couldn't understand why Naruto had chosen to fight her in the first place. In the event that they did fight and he was the only one still standing, it would be wrong of him not to ask Naruto the question that made him sick just thinking about it. "Did you kill?" What Naruto knew the man wanted to know most was abruptly cut off before he could finish asking. "Like I said," he said, ending the conversation. He knew he didn't kill Wolf. Johnny was the only one who knew, and he was already gone. That's how things were better. The longer it goes on, the better it will be that not many people know those two got away. Even Otakon didn't know Naruto could sound that cold when he talked. He knew the blonde was a soldier, but she didn't always act like it. He did question why the young man was on Shadow Moses Island with Next Generation Special Forces and Foxhound, who seemed to be more serious. Hearing that voice and seeing that tough look in his eyes made him realize that this was the same person who fought off up to 20 soldiers by themselves and blew up a tank hangar as a distraction. And that made him sure of what would happen to one Sniper Wolf. He was pretty close to Naruto and had seen him do those things. Since Wolf hadn't been seen since attacking Meryl, the fact that he was there meant that he had really taken care of her. Behind Snake's back, he knew that Naruto had killed Sniper Wolf. Naruto had done the very thing that he had been trying to get Snake to not do if they met again. "Why did you have to kill Wolf? She was a good person and didn't deserve to die. I thought you were friends. I thought you were more than friends. How could you kill her?" Otakon asked Naruto weakly as his fists shook with anger. He wished that his attack on Naruto had led to some kind of good result for him. He didn't do it because he knew that attacking Naruto would hurt him badly and quickly. Naruto looked like he had been in fights all day and night based on his clothes and appearance. He probably wouldn't have found it funny that a 135-pound scientist had been sneaking around instead of fighting and trying to choke him for protecting himself and saving the country. At this point, Otakon could only drop to his knees and cry quietly as the sobbing began. He had never even talked to Wolf again before finding out what happened to her after the fight with Naruto. "I loved her," he whispered through his tears. Meryl could only look at Naruto and not at the scientist who had just broken down. Naruto looked back at her and shook his head, as if to say, "Ask me or him later." She shouldn't try to figure out why Otakon was acting this way right now because she didn't know. Naruto could have just told her there, so it didn't matter what was going on. It was still wrong for her to see a 25-year-old man cry like that in front of her, but she didn't know what to do. Naruto, on the other hand, didn't like how he was trying to make it look like he had killed Sniper Wolf. He told Otakon a few weeks ago that he liked her, but it wouldn't have helped them if Otakon knew what he had really done with her by giving her to Johnny to keep safe and get away from the base. When this was over, Otakon would no longer be a criminal. It was as simple as that. Sniper Wolf and maybe Johnny would be. She was safer because at least one person thought she was dead and would say so when she was asked about it later because he thought she was dead. He didn't lie when he said he killed her either, he just let Otakon draw his own conclusions. He never liked lying and never was very good at it, but he could get people to believe something so that it wasn't important. Even though it was for the right reason, he felt like a real jerk for putting the man in that state, especially since there was no good reason. Meryl looked at Naruto. "Alright, that's enough. I can't let you really go any further than this, Meryl. I promised someone that I would keep you safe, and going down to where Rex is definitely isn't safe." Meryl screamed in anger. What? She had been taken over by a psychic, shot in 3 places by a sniper, and had to deal with all the chaos that had been going on since the base was taken over, and now she wasn't even going to be able to see it through to the end. That made her very angry. You think I'm going to stay back because it won't be safe down there? That's nonsense. She gave Naruto a dry look. Metal Gear is a 30-foot tank with legs that has machine guns, missile launchers, and is going to be guarded and probably used by Revolver Ocelot or Liquid Snake. Neither of them are going to be bad at driving it, I'm sure. And then there's also the nuclear warhead part that I didn't talk about. Do you want to be around in case we set the thing off by accident? Rex isn't that little. It's around 50 to 60 feet now. Otacon chimed in, still crying. Rex was designed to be better than the last designs that came before it. The missiles are homing and anti-tank, the guns all freely rotate, and it has a high-energy laser meant to deal with close-range threats. Its feet are even powerful weapons. Naruto and Meryl both just stared at each other with wide eyes after that short list of what Metal Gear Rex had to offer. He was aware that it would be huge and that the weapons would be strong, but this was obviously silly. That told him more than anything else that she wasn't going down there with him. Snake had already faced 2 different models from earlier. He knew how big the metal monsters were because he had measured them himself before. If things got really bad, he would be the one who could beat Rex. On the other hand, Naruto could at least get in the way and catch them off guard. His hopes were not high that he would find something useful down there that would help him get it out. At the very least, he was quick and flexible enough to make it hard for the person driving the machine to catch him if he could bother them long enough. Because neither of them knew how to fight Rex, they couldn't let someone go down there who didn't know what they were doing or who didn't have the skills and traits to do harm to the weapon. Meryl only had her Desert Eagle and the magazine that came with it. She had already fired 1 shot from it. There were not enough bullets for her to get down there in the first place. She would only be a problem if she got into a fight with Rex once she got there. She wasn't as quick as Snake or Naruto, she didn't have the right weapons for Rex, and she didn't know how to help without making things worse. If they tried to protect her, one of them could get hurt or even die. Naruto told her, "Yeah, you're staying here." She didn't argue, which he noticed. And he pointed to Otacon, who was crying again over Sniper Wolf. "Make sure he stays alive, and when everything is over, find a way for you guys to get out of here with Snake." The answer was a nod from Meryl. She wanted to help, but she knew she couldn't help Rex. Another good reason she didn't need to go down there was that they hadn't talked about how they were going to leave when everything was over. Naruto was about to go deeper into the underground facility when Otacon stopped him and said, "Wait." Naruto turned to face Otacon and asked, "How could you do it? How could you go and do what you did to Wolf? The time you spent together, what you two had, didn't that mean anything to you when the time came? Did you even feel anything at all?" He could give Otacon a cold answer to his question because he hadn't killed her. "I could do it because it was what had to happen. She picked her side, she turned on me. She knew that we would have to fight if that's how things went. She wanted it that way. Before the battle ended, I don't know, maybe I made her realize it was a mistake." He let out a sigh. "I did my job. That's all there is to it." He then began to walk away again. Otacon whispered, and Naruto may have been able to hear him, "People your age shouldn't talk like that. It's not right that you can just kill friends as your job. Who can live with themselves like that?" As Naruto continued to walk away, Otacon shook his head slowly and said, "You're a monster." The scientist was crying quietly, and Meryl turned to look at him in shock. She then looked up at Naruto, who had stopped in his tracks before he finally said, "Maybe." He said it in a quiet voice and kept walking. With Snake a Euro. Repair base underground a Euro, on way to Rex's hangar. He felt like stopping this Metal Gear was getting more and more important as he learned more about Rex. It was not only possible for the thing to fire nuclear warheads, but the warheads themselves could not have been tanks. With the railgun on the shoulder of the machine, Rex could fire nuclear weapons that aren't really missiles. Also, no radar would pick them up. People who were being attacked wouldn't know about it until it was too late. There were already a lot of reasons to make sure this thing never went off. He had learned from ARMS Tech President Baker the secret to the PAL key that was needed to override Rex. It turned out that there weren't 3 separate keys. You could only have one, but you had to use it in different ways. Once when it was normal, once when it was frozen, and once when it was too hot. He just finished the second task, which was to enter the last code that Snake needed to. He was now on his way back to the hangar and the control room to finish the mission by taking a cargo elevator through the deepest parts of the base. The lift moved slowly and it was a long way down. There was nothing else for him to do but make sure his gear was ready to go when the elevator stopped and he got off. His codec went off, which was a good thing because he was bored. But it was Naomi's frequency that he heard. "Snake, can you hear me?" He didn't think he'd hear from her again after everything that had happened and what she had told him. "Naomi, what the hell?" She told him, "Campbell and the others are busy right now. I'm on a different codec." That's why she was speaking so quietly and how she was able to talk to him in the first place. "Naomi, is what the colonel says true?" Snake wanted her to answer with a resounding no. He was having enough trouble tonight to say yes. But his luck wasn't even close to that good. "Yes," he said. Of course everything was true. He needed people behind him to try to kill him too. But not everything I said was a lie. I don't know my real name or what my parents look like. I bought all of my current IDs, but my reason for getting into genetics was true. Because you want to know yourself, right? Snake thought back to the conversation they had while he was being held captive by Ocelot. "Yes, I do. I want to know where I came from, how old I am, what race I am, anything I can really." He didn't understand why she was telling him this, but he had to listen. "I was found in Rhodesia as an orphan in the 1980s. "You mean what's now known as Zimbabwe?" It was owned by England until 1965, and there were a lot of Indian workers there. "That's probably where my skin color came from, but I'm not sure." Her tone was a little sad, like she felt bad that she didn't know these things and then admitted they made her sad. "Naomi, you're too worried about the past. Isn't it enough to understand who you are now?" Snake shook his head, but no one could see it. "If you keep dwelling on your own past, you might have gone crazy by now." That made her angry, so she said, "Why should I try to figure out who I am now? No one else tries to understand me. I was alone for so long until I met my big brother and him." She had been talking about a brother who was much older than her and had taken care of her before he died. What she said made it sound like they weren't even related by blood. "Your big brother." Snake didn't like how this conversation was going. Snake knew this big brother of hers had something to do with her because she talked about him a lot. He didn't like it when other men called him. That word just never meant anything good to him. "Yes. My big brother Frank Yeager." "What? Damn, I could hear him call that one from a mile away." Frank Yeager was Gray Fox's real name. That was the same Gray Fox that Shadow Moses saw running around in that cyborg exoskeleton. That was the same Gray Fox that he had killed with his fists in a minefield in Zanzibar land. No Gray Fox. Naomi's voice changed as she started to speak again. "He was only a young soldier when he picked me up near the Zambezi River. I was half dead from hunger, and he gave me his food." She added an accusatory tone to her voice. "Frank Yeager, the man you killed, was my brother and my only family. Today was not Snake's day at all. It seemed like nothing was going right for him. Frank and I made it through that hell together. He protected me. He's my one connection at Euro. The only connection I have to my past." Snake tried to finish for her, "And he brought you to America. What other way could she have come here?" Naomi told him, "No, I was in Mozambique when he came." And since 1999, Snake knew exactly who they were talking about when they used he and him too much around him, as if it were rude to use the person's name. "And by he, you mean Big Boss, don't you?" "Yes." "Oh no, that meant he was the one who hurt Gray Fox and Big Boss, two people she seemed to care about. He brought us here to this land of freedom, this America, but then he and my brother went back to Africa to continue the war at Euro, and that's when it happened. He knew what she'd say. He had to fight them both in Zanzibar. You killed my benefactor and sent my brother home a cripple. I vowed revenge and joined Foxhound because I knew it was my best chance to meet you, and I prayed for the day that I would. And clearly your prayers were answered." Once the shock of the news wore off, Snake began to see this as any other person who wanted to kill him. "Go for it. I waited 2 long years after joining Foxhound at Euro. To kill me? Is that all you cared about? These people didn't get that it was his job. It wasn't about them. He would have finished that mission without killing Gray Fox if he could have, but there was no way to do that." Naomi didn't seem to care about the soldier's life at all. "You were all I thought about for 2 years, like some kind of twisted obsession." She ended with a small laugh, as if she thought the whole thing was funny now. Snake asked, "Do you still hate me?" She had been through everything with him and seen how he lived while on missions like these. Sometimes he had no choice but to do these things. Not counting the mission he was on at the moment, Zanzibar land was the worst mission he had ever been on. It was the one that broke him. Not exactly, Naomi said. I was maybe a little wrong about you. What about Liquid and the others? He asked. Did how she felt affect other people as well? Did she really want to stop the nuke from going off? Or did she just want to keep Metal Gear Rex from going off? If she really did something that would stop him from finishing, things would be so close to being done. I'll get back at them too, she said, and Snake was pretty sure that none of the terrorist leaders would drop out of this. At this point, Liquid and Ocelot were the only ones left. But when he heard that she was killing Foxhound members and that she didn't feel bad about him, he had to ask her, Naomi, you didn't kill that doctor either? The one who used Gray Fox for the genome experiments. Dr. Clark? No, that was my brother. Afterwards I covered it up and helped him hide out. Naomi said, I even helped him ensure that the young man he had with him was kept clear of anyone discovering his time in captivity as well. She laughed again. I never knew that the same boy that I wound up getting to a medical facility to lay low was Naruto Uzumaki. I didn't know what had become of him until I met him again. He was actually very useful in designing something very specific to Foxdie even if he never knows of it. But then it was never his problem in the first place. She asked, so you knew more about Naruto than you told me? Snake asked, and that ninja Euro? I mean Gray Foxa Euro? He's come here to kill me? Not much more than anyone else knows, but yes, I do know Naruto a little better than anyone else knew. And I don't think Frank is here to kill you. I think he just came here to fight you. Well, he had that going for him. Gray Fox wasn't there to kill him. I wasn't sure before, but now I think I get it. He lives for one last fight with you, I'm sure of it, he said. No, Fox, that's not possible. Snake knew that. Such a random reason to stay alive was not good at all. Even for a soldier who had lived through battle. Naomi, tell me something. About Foxdie? She asked, thinking about the virus he had been injected with. Foxdie is a type of retrovirus that only infects and kills certain people. It starts by infecting the macrophages in the victim's body. Foxdie contains smart enzymes made through protein engineering. They are programmed to respond to specific genetic patterns in the cells. What a nasty little bug. So they recognize the target's DNA. Snake knew a lot about biological warfare, but that made no sense. When you say, yes, they respond by becoming active and using macrophages to start making TNF-epsilon. Snake didn't know what that was, so the line went dead. It's a type of cytokine, a peptide that kills cells. It travels through the bloodstream to the heart and attaches to TNF receptors in heart cells. He only had to hear heart to know, and they cause a heart attack? The heart cells undergo shock and suffer an extreme apoptosis, and Thena Euro the victim dies. You must have set that thing up to kill me too, right? This makes sense. She wanted to get back at him, so why not kill him with her little Frankenstein monster? He only needed one more answer, which was silence. Do I still have time? He asked again, but got no response. Naomi, I don't blame you for wanting me dead. But I can't go yet, I still have a job to do. There's still something you need to know. Naomi finally spoke, but her voice showed that she was hesitant. Snake, I didn't decide to use Foxdie. You were injected with Foxdie as part of this operation. To let you know that. Snake didn't say anything. When something like that happens, what should you say? Being kept in the dark about your mission is one thing, but being given a deadly virus on purpose was just plain weird. No, that's not the whole truth. The real thing I wanted to tell you was. Steps from Naomi's end could be heard running over the codec at that moment, before Campbell's voice came over in the background and was muffled. Hey, what are you doing? There were sounds of a short fight and the line being broken before Campbell spoke up. Snake, I can't let Naomi make any more unauthorized transmissions. Naomi's been removed from this operation. What? Why did it have to happen now? What did she plan to say to him before they took her away? What happened to Naomi? What did she mean when she said that Foxdie was a part of this operation? Colonel, let me talk to her. Campbell said in a firm voice, I won't, she's under arrest. Snake muttered, damn it. You really did double-cross me. Campbell yelled at Snake, there's no time for that right now. Your job is to stop Metal Gear. Okay, Snake. Campbell then hung up, leaving Snake to think about what it all meant. Snake still had to wait for that long elevator to get to the lower part of the base after all the talks were over. More and more bad things were happening. Snake only knew that if he lived long enough after everything was over, he would really disappear. At this point, it was too much. If he was going to be used like he didn't matter, what was the point of being loyal? He kept these thoughts to himself until the elevator behind him hit something hard. Once he saw who was behind him, Snake turned around and got ready to fight. God kid, don't do that. I thought you were another one of those stealth camo idiots, he said when he saw Naruto. How did you even get here? Naruto looked up and then at the metal wire wrapped around his taped right fist. I caught a kunai on top and just dropped while holding onto my wire. It's like rappelling, but way more dangerous and stupid, he said. Also, if I wasn't wearing this tape and hadn't bundled the wire so well, I probably would have cut through most of my arm. He began to unwrap his fist and shook it out. Snake laughed and then asked, "Where's Meryl? I thought you were going to go get her. That's lovely." Done that. She's with Otakon now, who's having a mini freakout, Naruto said. I fought and beat Sniper Wolf and told him about her when he asked about her. Snake looked at him curiously. Damn, that's pretty cool, Snake thought. He knew that fighting Wolf wasn't something he needed to do today. After getting Meryl and himself out of jail, he owed Naruto taking care of one of his main threats. This is probably why he never saw her again. So wait, you're actually going to help me deal with this personally? He smiled and shrugged. I'm here, aren't I? Of course, if you really want to do this by yourself, I can head right back up. He wasn't going back to the top, even though Snake asked him to. Naruto frowned and asked, Hey, Snake, is there something wrong? The older soldier didn't even roll his eyes at him for being rude. Snake replied, I don't even know where to start or where to begin. He saw that Naruto was somewhat worried and told him, Don't worry about any of it though. I'll still be able to finish the mission, don't you worry about it. He couldn't back out of anything now, no matter how he felt. He didn't have a choice. Naruto said about Snake's mood, I'm not really that worried about the mission, Snake. But if you don't want to talk about just what the big problem is, I'll let it go. Snake seemed to have enough gear to fight half of the soldiers stationed elsewhere in the base. The elevator finally got to the level where Rex's hangar was, and it let them out. This let them both run through the rest of the base to get to their goal. Hangar Rex Naruto looked up at what he thought was the Metal Gear Rex model that was the center of all the chaos and said, You've got to be kidding me. He then asked in a doubtful tone, Who builds crap like this? Metal T-Rex that looked like a real animal. The frame of the machine was heavily armored all the way through. The thing really did stand as tall as Otakon said it would, and it was also much bigger than Naruto thought it would be. The two big legs with the backwards joints were as wide as at least 3 or 4 of him. The small but still pretty big rail gun that would fire nuclear weapons when everything was ready to go was sitting on its shoulder, visible above all the other huge weapons. When Snake saw Naruto's blank stare, he said, That's Metal Gear for you. Designers don't mess around when they make these things. Still, Snake had felt the same way the first time he saw it. Just the fact that Rex was better than the last 2 models he had seen made him quickly forget about it. Naruto did get better, but he was still amazed that people could make something like that. If it was as dangerous to use as it seemed at first, he had to put that thing down. As it turned out, Snake's carry-around weapons couldn't even hurt the metal monster. It had too much armor on it. Meh, you might say. Shukaku was still bigger. But Shukaku didn't have guided missiles, so it couldn't nuke a country from miles away. Snake grunted and then started to climb up the maintenance balconies to get back to the control room, which was on the 3rd floor against the wall of the huge hangar. It was clear that he knew his job, which was to press the PAL key and end everything. But Naruto just noticed that Rex, which was the most important part of Shadow Moses, didn't have a soul guarding it. It was impossible for him to hide himself because no one was around, not even in a silly hiding place. It was now time to make use of that little fact. Naruto began climbing Rex straight up to get to the cockpit at the front. He felt confused and out of place as he looked inside to see if he could have stolen this thing and used it if Snake wasn't going to turn it off for good. He also thought it was cool to fly a helicopter. He could not even begin to think of a way to drive Rex. He didn't think there was a teach system inside the thing, even if it was turned on. When Naruto looked into the cockpit, he scratched his head and asked himself, why are there 6 pedals if there are only 4 directions? Liquid was right to keep him out of the hangar for all those months. He would have tried to learn how to drive Rex even if he didn't know about the uprising if he had had access to it. After that, he would definitely know how to drive it. But letting him see Rex might have been a better distraction than keeping him up at the base and doing nothing for so long. Liar, you knew I'd want to drive it, can't anyone let me steal anything the right way anymore? Naruto muttered in anger as he jumped to the top of Rex and sat down there to wait for Snake to finish. Rex's hangar and the control room with Snake. Snake put the last form of the PAL key into the computer's slot to end everything, and then he waited for the confirmation sound to let him know that everything was off. The computer told Snake, PAL code number 3 confirmed. This made him smile a little. He kept smiling until the computer said again, PAL code entry complete. Detonation code activated. Then there was an alarm that went off in the whole hangar. Snake slammed the computer as if that would take back what he had just said. No, he yelled. Why? He had done everything right. He went down there and got the key just like Baker told him to. He put the key in 3 times, so why was the explosion still going to happen? Naruto stood up and jumped off the huge metal gear as it seemed to start up and rumble violently, ready for launch. When Naruto got to Snake's spot in the control room, he smashed on the glass of the observation window and asked, Snake, what happened? Were we too late? What about the PAL key? Wasn't that supposed to stop it? It was Snake who yelled back, I don't know. I turned it off, I know I did. He heard over his codec, thank you Snake. Now the detonation code is complete. Nothing can stop Metal Gear now, Mr. Miller's codec said. Snake asked, Master, what's going on? There were several times that Naruto asked, Master? He then clenched his teeth and tried to join the conversation using his own codec. He spoke up just as Miller was saying, you found the key and even set off the warhead for us. I really must say thank you. I'm sorry I got you involved in that silly shape memory alloy business with the PAL key. Miller had never sounded so damn proud before. He didn't act like that at all. Naruto knew he was right to send someone to the man's house. Snake growled, what are you talking about? He believed this was over. Why couldn't things always be clear? We weren't able to learn the DARPA chief's code, Miller said, sounding very happy about the whole thing. Even with Mantis' psychic powers he couldn't read his mind. And then Ocelot accidentally killed him during the physical interrogation. In the end we weren't able to launch the nuclear device and we were all getting a little worried. Without the threat of a nuclear strike, our demands would never be met. Without the detonation codes we had to find some other way, and that's when we decided that you might prove useful Snake. I thought we could get the info from you, so I disguised Decoy Octopus as the DARPA chief a Euro. Unfortunately he didn't survive the encounter thanks to Foxdie. Naruto thought to himself, so that's what killed Octopus. Then he blinks and asks out loud, wait, what the hell is Foxdie? Snake was shocked. He had been used once more. A Euro OSO, you had this plan from the start? Just to get me to enter the detonation code. He was asked by both his friends and the enemy. They were both getting what they wanted from him. Miller laughed out loud at the connection. You didn't really think you made it this far on your own, did you? He teased. Anyway, launch preparations are complete. Once the world sees how powerful this weapon is, the White House will have no choice but to give me the Foxdie vaccine. Their ace in the hole is now useless. Ace in the hole? Naruto asked with a question. Wasn't the big plan to send Snake in? What was that meant to happen if he failed the mission? He didn't understand what was going on. Wasn't Snake the whole point of what the bosses wanted to do? Miller laughed at Naruto and said, you're still a child. You have no idea what's going on around you. This made Naruto grunt in anger. Miller then laughed and said, Snake, you're the most important part of all of this and you don't even know, you poor fool. Snake asked this person, who are you anyway? So he could hit them in the kneecaps a few times. Not a big deal. He needed to get away from this mission because it was really getting on his nerves. Not at all like that. I'll tell you everything you want to know a Euro if you come to where I am, that is. And where are you? The Snake asked in a low voice. Very close by a Euro. This is when Campbell's voice came back over the conversation. Snake, that's not Master Miller. Naruto was right the whole time. Miller's voice teased in a sing-song way, "You're too late, Campbell." Hearing that made Naruto feel like he had been punched in the stomach. Master Miller's body was just discovered at his home. He's been dead for at least 3 days. He had to lean against the wall to think about what he was thinking. No amount of optimism could take that thought out of the back of his mind. He kind of knew it would happen. Reality was very different from what I thought it might be. My codec signal with him was jammed, but Mei Ling just said that his transmissions have been coming from inside the base. Snake. The whole time you've been talking to me. Master Miller's voice changed to sound British, "My dear brother." Liquid. Snake yelled in a mad mood. Liquid said smugly, "You've done your job. You can now die." At that very moment, the doors to Snake's lab were locked, and gas began to leak into the room. When Naruto saw that the room was filling with gas, he punched at the windows but couldn't break them. He took out his SOCOM and fired at it, but nothing happened. At least a bullet couldn't go through the glass. He heard footsteps on the metal catwalk around the side of the control room out in the hangar and saw Liquid, the main reason he was there in the first place. He had more reason than ever to kill him. "Liquid, you're dead," he yelled as he jumped off the side catwalk and hit Rex on the head. When Liquid saw Naruto standing on top of Rex, he turned his famous gun on him and started firing, but Naruto jumped off and landed on the maintenance balconies around it, blocking the shot. "You could work with me, Naruto," Liquid told him as Naruto hid around the backside of Rex to avoid being shot. "You could get all of those questions answered. You could live in a world where you would always be wanted and needed. I'm doing this for fighters like us. Trying to make a world where we're valued. I already had that, you bastard." 2 clones of Naruto were on top of Rex pointing their MP5 kiloseconds at Liquid. 2 more clones were on both sides of the maintenance balconies below, firing more accurately from their SOCOM pistols. The clones on top were trying to focus their automatic fire on Liquid to make it easier for the clones firing pistols to hit him. "Master Miller was the only man that ever meant a damn thing to me in this world," yelled the original Naruto. The emotionless clones made it clear that the real one wasn't among them. "He was like family to me. And you think I care enough about my place in this world to let you use me the way you used the rest of Foxhound?" Liquid got tired of being shot at, so she put 2 grenades in the pockets with the pins pulled out and threw the heavy trench coat at Naruto's clones on top of Rex. The explosion shook them and threw them away, even if they weren't caught in it. This kept Naruto from taking any more phantom damage. Liquid smiled as he saw the copies of Naruto get destroyed, but then he heard a yell that sounded like pain and anger coming from behind him. When he turned around, the original Naruto hit him in the face with his fist, which made him drop his gun. Today was the second time Naruto was caught in an explosion with one of his clones. This time, though, it didn't hurt nearly as much as the first 2 times. After that, Naruto was free to try to take out his anger on Liquid's face with his bare hands, since that was the only weapon he felt like using at the time. There were flecks of red in Naruto's blue eyes, but when he felt them, he pushed them back. "I don't need you. This is for me. Don't get involved with Master Miller because you didn't know or care about him." Basically, Naruto told the Kyuubi what to do, and it tried to give him power through his anger. Naruto hit Liquid in the face several times with his fists before the shocked Foxhound commander could figure out what was going on and defend himself. He pulled Naruto in toward him by the front of his vest and hit him several times in the face with hard blows that stopped the attack. "I will not lose a fight to a baby-faced runt," he yelled as he grabbed Naruto by the hair and threw him hard into the railing on the side of the catwalk. Naruto's body hit the metal with a bloody nose, but he hit Liquid in the face with a stiff front kick while holding on to the railing. "This baby-faced runt is going to kill you, Liquid," Naruto yelled at his fellow blonde as he threw off Liquid's vest, which Liquid had just used as leverage. If that's how the fight was going to go, he didn't need the extra grip on the other person. Liquid's back hit the wall, and he growled because he thought a punk kid might have broken a tooth. He can't be that good at hand-to-hand combat, he thought. Liquid thought this as he walked back out to fight Naruto on the narrow catwalk. He doesn't even know CQC or any real style. However, Liquid's first jab was blocked. He then hit Naruto with a strong straight right hand that broke his guard. "Man, that guy is really strong," Naruto thought as he fell backwards, his forearms hurting badly from the blocked punch. But he wasn't even close to giving up. The whole point of the fight was for Liquid to kill him. When Naruto came back at Liquid, he looked like he was getting ready for another strong punch, but Liquid saw it coming and thought Naruto would just charge him directly. Liquid thought that was just how he was, both in personality and in battle. Because Naruto knew the punch was coming straight at him, he jumped up on the railing of the catwalk and gave Liquid a hard kick to the side of the head that sent him tumbling against the wall. He almost crushed Liquid's head when he jumped off the railing and put his boot on it while it was sitting close to the wall, but he missed. Naruto tried to look good by using his chakra to stick to the wall. He was about to launch another attack from above when Liquid grabbed him by the back leg and threw him against the metal railing again. And there was a reason Liquid was in charge. Even though he was good at using vehicles, he wasn't bad at any other part of combat either. Naruto only thought Ocelot and Liquid were dangerous because of their fighting skills. Even though Raven was big enough to be dangerous, he didn't have much skill beyond basic training to defend himself. That would be enough to beat a normal person, but Naruto, Ocelot, and Liquid were skilled enough to beat him by fists alone. Liquid slammed a knee into Naruto's stomach while he was pinned against the rail and punched him in the head until he fell to his knees. Naruto's hair was pulled back, and he was pulled to his feet so that he could look him straight in the eyes. Killing Miller and taking his place was the best way to get in with Snake. But if it really bothers you that much, I'll make sure you and Snake meet him again soon. He laughed and pointed to Snake, who was still trying to stay alive in the heavily gassed room. He made a mistake by taking his eyes off of Naruto, who was already mostly still. He would soon pay for it. Naruto still had something up his sleeve, because with a quick movement of his tongue, he pulled out a razor blade and cut Liquid across the side of the face, making him let go. I was aiming for his throat. Naruto thought to himself as he swung his legs back under him and delivered a sidekick to the face. Why can this guy take a hit so well? What am I going to do? Naruto asked himself as the fight moved down the catwalk in front of Snake's control room. The fight moved right into his line of sight, and he struggled not to breathe in the heavy gas. Naruto wished he could help, but he was in trouble himself right now. Naruto threw Liquid against the glass in the control room, and Liquid, who was angry and had a deep cut on his cheek that could have taken an eye if it had been a few inches higher, took a spin kick. He then hit Naruto in the body with a hard right hand. After Naruto's hard punch, he let out a sharp breath. The kid then attacked Liquid with a knee to the inside leg, which threw him off balance, and an elbow to the face, which knocked him backwards and put them back at a standstill. Ewa, did you have to kill Master? Naruto asked his former commander in a furious tone. He had nothing to do with this, he was innocent. Liquid wiped the blood off his face from his fight with Naruto and said, "You idiot, there's no honor in this. Just because someone is innocent doesn't mean anything. Every day, innocent people are caught in the crossfire in wars all over the world. You haven't seen true innocence. He was just a means to an end, a way to manipulate Snake and get information on my enemy. Just like the rest of Foxhound were fools if they could all fall to you and Snake so easily. And that's why your stupid plan to make a haven for soldiers doesn't have any legs to stand on." Naruto said. "Why would anyone follow you if they couldn't trust you? You'd feed me to the jackals the second anything got a little tough, and you're offering me a chance to join you. No thanks. So good luck getting anyone worth working with to help you without Mantis brainwashing them. On top of the nearly 1,000 men I have stationed here, I have at least 1,000 Gerlukovich mercenaries with Sergei himself ready to be hired." Liquid yelled back at Naruto, "They will help form the core of the new outer haven. The world won't dare touch us as long as we have Metal Gear Rex, and our forces will only grow while the bigger nations argue over what we do here." Naruto was very sure of his plan, even though there had been some problems so far. "One washed-up old soldier for all the things I've done and will continue to do. I'd say that the kill is worth the benefit from it," he said in a sarcastic way before a row of shuriken landed on him. He moved so fast that he never even saw Naruto draw them. He didn't even have time to react before Naruto charged at him and tackled him to the ground. Liquid kicked Naruto back with his legs to get him off. As he tried to stand up, Naruto kicked him in the side of the body and the head several times. Even as he tried to stand back up, Naruto kept hitting him. Stars being thrown. Now, really, it didn't matter to Liquid if the kid could fight dirty or not, he was tired of losing anyhow. At the height of his success, he wasn't going to let an angry 18-year-old punk keep beating him up. This was his moment. He quickly got his chance when Naruto kicked Liquid in the head from above and missed because Liquid dove low. While Liquid was crouching, he delivered a devastating uppercut to Naruto's weakest spot. The hit was so strong that it pretty much lifted him off the ground. Naruto sometimes used cool little assassin tricks, but nobody cared about those. Cheating was cheating no matter what. Naruto was completely worn out from the punch to his testicles when he fell to the ground, wide-eyed and coughing horribly. Liquid then put the boots on the blonde's head and body until he pushed him to the end of the catwalk and took one last kick to send him over the edge and to the ground below. Hearing Naruto's body hit the ground with a dull metallic thud, Liquid laughed out loud at how crudely he killed him. So much for that. From where he was stuck in the control room, Snake saw everything that happened. "Kid!" he yelled before coughing. He was almost unconscious from the gas, but he was awake enough to see Naruto fall. "Otacon, get me out of here!" he yelled into his codec. "Snake, I've got the door open. You're free." Otacon had been hacking into the systems from wherever he was to get Snake out of the control room trap. He only needed to hear that to get up and run through the room and out the door. Once he was outside, he could gather his thoughts again. He rushed over to where he had seen Naruto fight Liquid and quickly said, "Liquid," using his gun. "You'd point a weapon at your own brother," Liquid joked. "I must say that you performed quite well even with all of the manipulation at Euro. I'm sure the boys in the Pentagon are saying the exact same thing." Snake looked at Liquid with a gun to his head and asked, "What are you talking about?" Following orders without questioning. Liquid ran his hand through his hair and smiled again. "You've lost your warrior's pride and become nothing more than a pawn, Snake." He pointed to where Naruto's body had fallen and said, at least he understood the concept of not letting himself be used. Even if he sort of was in the end. He turned his full attention back to Snake and said, "Stopping the nuclear launch and rescuing the hostages at Euro. All of this was just a distraction." Snake snapped at his brother. "Tell me what you mean." He was sick of all the mind games after seeing Naruto fall 40 or 50 feet to the ground and having to deal with other things tonight because of them. "The Pentagon only needed you to come into contact with us. That's what killed the ARMS tech president and decoy octopus." Liquid laughed at Snake's realization. "That's right. You were sent in here to kill us so they could retrieve Metal Gear undamaged along with the bodies of as many genome soldiers as they could recover. From the beginning the Pentagon was just using you as a vector to spread foxdie." "Are you telling me Naomi worked for the Pentagon?" Snake snapped his teeth together in anger. Liquid said, "They thought she was. But the dear doctor couldn't be controlled so easily. A Euro, my spy told me as much," he said. "My spy reported that she altered FOXDIE's program right before the operation at Euro, but no one knows how or why." Snake said with a doubtful look in his eyes, "I wonder. Maybe they arrested her to find out the answer to that." He spoke to him like he was a child when he said, "No doubt, brother. But I had no idea she was after such small revenge. We still don't know what changes she made to FOXDIE's program, but I've already added the foxdie vaccine to the White House's list of demands." Snake didn't sound too sure when he said, "There's a vaccine? That sounds like it would be too easy, doesn't it? Why would there be a vaccine for a disease that has been changed so that it only affects a few people?" "There must be." Liquid seemed positive that a vaccine was available. "But the only one who knows for sure is that woman a Euro, but it might prove to be unnecessary a Euro because you contacted all of us, so we must have all been exposed to the virus." "Yes. Baker and Octopus were killed by it, but Ocelot, myself, and Naruto, whom they didn't know wasn't on our side until you got here, along with you the carrier, were apparently unaffected." "You must be lucky like that," Snake said. "Maybe there's a bug in the programming." In any case, Liquid didn't seem to care about what was going on. "In any case, if it doesn't kill you, then I'm not worried either. After all, our genetic code is identical." "So yes. We're twins," Liquid said firmly, "but we're not ordinary twins. We're twins linked by cursed genes." He laughed bitterly, les enfants terribles. Anger crossed his face. "You're fine. You got all of the old man's dominant genes. I got all of the flawed, recessive genes. Everything was done so that you would be the greatest of his children. The only reason I exist is so they could create you." "I was the favorite, huh?" Snake joked again. "That's right." Liquid spewed badly. "I'm just the leftovers of what they used to make you. Can you understand what it's like to know that you're garbage since the day you were born?" He smiled again. Buddha Euro, I'm the one father chose. That's why you're so crazy about Big Boss, Snake thought. Some kind of crazy love. He wouldn't have understood it himself. What Snake really felt when he thought of his father was anger because Big Boss had hurt him by betraying and abusing him. Love? Liquid seemed upset by the thought of it. It's hate. He always told me I was inferior, and now I'll have my revenge. You should understand me, brother. You were the one that killed our father with your own hands. You stole my chance for revenge, and now I'll finish the work father began. I will surpass Hema Euro. I'll destroy every aspect of Hema Euro. Snake, who was tired of hearing Liquid's sad story, said, You're just like Naomi. So what did it matter to him? He was just another psychopath who thought he was right. It was just someone else who couldn't move on and find something new. Liquid replied, Well, I'm damn sure not like you. She then added, Unlike you, I'm actually proud of the destiny that is written in my very genes. She then jumped over the railing and landed in Rex's open engine bay. Snake put his gun away and ran away from the machine that was working. Damn, he thought, a gun wouldn't work against that metal monster for sure. There was an intercom coming from REX that said, Snake, your blood will be the first to be spilled by this glorious new weapon. The maintenance balconies around Rex fell as it started to move. Now you get to see the power of the weapon that will lead us into the 21st century. The huge platform that Rex had been on started to move up to the upper level of the hangar, where it would be set up outside. It was destroyed when the balconies and catwalks gave way as the platform moved up. Snake jumped onto the platform to avoid being crushed. How am I supposed to stop this thing? Snake asked himself. A euro, I don't know a euro. Snake turned to the side and saw Naruto lying on the ground. He was hurt, but he was still alive and pretty much fine. Kid, are you okay? Snake asked. Naruto had just fallen at least 40 feet. He had to be hurt in a way that would last. Naruto weakly said, I'll live. He held on to his groin and said, I've taken worse falls than that before. And there's nothing like the threat of death to make you forget that you might not be having kids later. He said this as he slowly stood up as fast as his hurt body would allow. When the platform stopped rising, they were able to set down in the big main hangar. This gave them a chance to get away from Rex right away. Snake heard gunshots and turned to see Naruto firing his SOCOM at Rex without stopping. Snake asked him, Kid, what are you doing? And he kept firing until Snake stopped him. Naruto rolled his eyes and replied, wasting bullets on this jerk. As if I'm really going to get lucky and do any damage like that. He then saw Snake pull out a Stinger missile launcher and said, Right. You find a way to hurt it. I'm going to go play defense with my body. Again. He finished by clenching his balls and saying, I've got something special for situations like this. Not that I ever thought I'd have to use it. Snake said, Maybe we'll get lucky. As a joke, Naruto said, Yeah, that's possible. And how's your day been going so far? I know mine has been pretty good so far. Snake growled at him. He had a terrible day and it looked like it was going to get worse if Snake had to say it out loud, point taken. But that was still a low blow that didn't need to be brought up. Before they could say anything else, Rex let out a deep roar that made them all aware that the fight had begun. Go Team Hopeless, Snake said in a dry tone. Liquid wasn't even looking at Naruto. She was looking at Snake. No matter what we have to do here to break that stupid robot, I'm killing him before sunrise. That's a promise, Naruto said. As they stood with their backs to Metal Gear Rex, Snake held a Stinger missile launcher and Naruto held his own hands. Any ideas? Snake asked Naruto. Because I'm open to suggestions in this case. Hearing Rex's body parts start to move and warm up woke them both up. Yeah, I have an idea, Naruto said as he heard the sound of a turret turning. Fucking run. That's my idea. Naruto and Snake then split off before Rex's guns could kill them both before the battle even started. Naruto was faster than Snake, which was clear because he was able to keep up with Liquid while running straight to avoid getting shot. As he ran around the Titanic machine, he learned that it was not a good idea to get close to Rex anywhere on its front side because it would try to hit him with a focused laser beam from its belly that was pointed at the ground. That's really strong, Naruto said as he stopped running to spring back and handspring his way out of getting cut in half. Naruto saw the burn mark on the ground where the laser had cut through the metal. If that touches me, I'll lose a limb or two, he thought. Snake shot at Rex from the other side, but Naruto was sent back far enough that he was no longer a threat. As Rex turned to face Snake directly, it fired 3 missiles at him. Snake had to dodge them with his heavy missile launcher, which he thought would be the only thing that could hurt Rex. Snake was able to avoid the main explosions, but the shockwave from the missiles going off pushed him to the ground. Rex had to have some kind of weakness. The 2 other Metal Gears he had fought before had a weakness. Their legs weren't very well protected. It was clear that Rex did not share that weakness. As usual for Metal Gear designs, the cockpit was well protected, and Liquid himself would not be hurt if a missile hit it. He could still see them because he couldn't look out of the closed cockpit. What? Liquid couldn't see them from the cockpit, so how did he aim and shoot them? He freely aimed his machine gun turrets at Naruto and himself. These turrets had to be operated by hand. When they fired, it looked like someone was actually aiming with their eyes. "You miserable brat. I'll send you to hell." Liquid yelled at Naruto over Rex's intercom system as he steered the huge machine toward him. How did that huge thing walk so fast? When Naruto ran between Rex's legs, he was able to avoid a stomp from each leg and outrun the laser beam that was trying to kill him. "Yeah, whatever. I guess I'll see you there, jerk." Naruto hid behind one of Rex's legs to tell Liquid to stop the laser before it cut through his own hull. Naruto jumped on the leg and stayed attached with chakra when Rex lifted it to stomp down on him with its metal spike-like protrusions. "Hit me now, you fucking bastard. How do you like dealing with someone that fights back?" he yelled. As Snake watched Rex scale him with the help of his clones to keep him from falling off and his chakra to stick, he asked out loud, "What in the hell is he doing? What is jumping on Rex going to do?" "Get off!" Liquid yelled as he fired his missiles at the Narutos that were attached to Rex's legs, not caring that they might hurt him. Naruto threw his clones off of Rex and jumped off of it before the missiles hit its hull instead of him. After going all the way back to Snake's side, Naruto smirked and told Liquid, "Let's see how much of that he can get hit with. Those missiles could take down a tank." When the dust from the missiles cleared, Snake said, "Rex is way tougher than any tank kid. That was a good idea to go for the legs, and you probably would have gotten one of the older models like that. But look at how thick that armor is. We aren't getting through that. We've got to get to Liquid himself." "And just how are we supposed to do that? Ask him nicely to open up so I can stab him?" Liquid asked Rex, whose roar was a sign that he was coming at them. "And why can a robot roar?" Naruto asked. Snake didn't answer. He just fired another missile at Rex, hoping it would hit something and hurt it. When the projectile hit Rex on the head and went off, Liquid made the huge Metal Gear fire its gun at his twin brother. Snake almost dropped his Stinger missile while trying to stay out of harm's way, but he was lucky and was not hurt. Naruto was already moving around again when Snake fired his missile. He had just filled a nearby metal crate with Rex's ammunition with his last 3 live grenades before picking it up and throwing it at Rex's head or cockpit. Snake was able to get away from Rex's gunfire and reload his Stinger before saying, "I owe that kid one." Again. How many times is that tonight? I've forgotten how many. There wasn't much damage on it, even after Naruto's stupid attempt to blow Rex to hell with a huge explosion. 3 more missiles came out of the smoke from the explosion, 1 for Naruto and 2 for Snake, who was still reloading his heavy weapon. "Snake!" Naruto yelled as he went to get more supplies from his almost empty pouch. He didn't have any more smoke bombs, nor did he think they would be useful. Also, Semtex wouldn't help at all in this case. He only had a few chaff grenades left, which he hadn't even touched yet. They should have thought of that from the start, why didn't they? Naruto ran up to Snake and dropped one of his chaff grenades on him. It exploded, sending small pieces of aluminum into the air and throwing off the missile targeting system. He didn't even say a word. This made it easy to avoid the missiles, if kids like playing with high explosives. Snake asked as he watched the dust fly through the air, "Chaff?" As he and Naruto watched Rex stumble around, he saw the huge radome on its left shoulder spinning around in a crazy way. "That's 4 for you today, kid," Snake said in a low voice. Naruto didn't understand what he was talking about and asked, "For what?" "All right, let's scrap this thing." Naruto charged forward and said, "Come shoot me now, you dick." He was mad about Liquid inside and hoped the man was wetting himself because he couldn't see. Naruto made a Rasengan with his right hand and was ready to try to get into the cockpit through Liquid or some other way. One could only hope to be so lucky. Kid, go for the Radome. He almost stopped when he heard Snake yell, but he didn't. He kept walking, trying to get a better look at Rex. I thought you said Liquid was in the cockpit. Snake yelled at the top of his lungs, if we bust the Radome, Rex can't see us, and he can't attack if he can't see. He picked up his Stinger missile launcher again, but didn't fire yet in case he caught Naruto in the blast. Fine. Rasengan spiraling sphere. Naruto slammed his Rasengan into the Radome on Metal Gear Rex's shoulder. But before he could start tearing it apart, Rex came back online and tried to pin Naruto against the side of the hangar with its body, so Naruto had to jump off too soon or get crushed. Naruto created a window of opportunity for Snake to launch a missile, which hit the Radome directly and hit it right on target. The blonde was now free and clear. The small attack they were able to mount on Rex seemed to irritate Liquid, as he tried to do two things at once when the Radome came back online from the chaff. He tried to use a laser to cut through Naruto and his machine gun to shoot at Snake at the same time, but Naruto quickly dodged the laser and jumped back onto Rex while it shot at Snake. Even though the shooter seemed to be distracted, Snake said, "Kid." It was scary because a machine gun was firing at him. He yelled back, "I'm on it. Hold your horses," as he climbed up to Rex's nose and dropped some Semtex into the gun pits on the side of its head that were aimed at Snake. "How do you like that, Commander?" Naruto asked Liquid in a mocking voice before jumping back into the air as Rex tried to shake him off again. The Semtex then went off and hit Rex in the head. As Naruto watched his work from a nearby wall, he jumped up and flipped Liquid off of it until the missile pods on Rex's legs opened up and fired again. Crap. Snake laughed as he fired another shot from his Stinger missile, which hit Rex's shoulder again with the Radome. "I've got missiles of my own, Liquid," Snake had to say. "Come on. I've shot it so many times already. How hard is the attachment alone?" As the missiles hit Naruto, who jumped off the wall to avoid them. "Die, Naruto." Liquid yelled at his former assistant as the missiles flew at him. "You were always more trouble than you were worth," he finished as he turned to deal with Snake, who had cornered him, and in his mind dealt with the annoying blonde gnat that had been buzzing around him. "This is going to be 10 kinds of awful. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu Shadow Clone Jutsu," Naruto thought as he pulled out one of his throwing knives and bit down hard on it between his teeth. He then made his crosshand seal and yelled, "Jutsu." 3 clones of Naruto appeared and jumped right into the path of the missiles, taking the hits for him while he held tight to the wall he was on and bit down hard on his knife to keep from yelling too loudly. Today, this was the 3rd time he had been caught in an explosion. It's likely that he would be fine if he never saw another explosion in his whole life. But now it was time to find a way to make Rex go boom. Under the smoke that was blocking his view, Naruto made a copy of himself as Kage Bunshin. He held out his right arm and had his copy hold out its left arm. Together, they made a Rasengan that was at least twice as big as the first one. Liquid was shooting at Snake, which stopped him from firing his Stinger missiles again. Because of this, Snake had his back turned, and Rex couldn't see Naruto. His eyes turned red as he and his clone jumped off the side of the wall and hit the back of Metal Gear Rex with all their might. Eyes on the prize, Liquid. Odama Rasengan, Great Ball Rasengan. Water didn't see it coming. The huge Rasengan hit the back of Rex's head and blew up straight away. Snake had to move away from the sudden burst of power and light that Naruto had just used. He even dropped his Stinger because of the shockwave. And I thought the kid was already dangerous enough. Where the hell did he get that from? No matter what had happened, the sounds coming from Rex sounded like an aluminum can being crinkled. When the explosions from Rex stopped, it was clear that there was no more Radome. It was just ripped off, and Rex's shoulder had a deep spiral dent that went over most of the left side of the machine. Black smoke was pouring out of it all the time. Snake spoke out loud and looked around for Naruto. "One attack of whatever that was did all of that? Kid, where are you?" he asked after that huge ball of energy or whatever it was exploded all over Rex's back. Naruto stood up from under Rex and said, "I'm here." He was breathing heavily. Using his right forearm to wipe the sweat off his face, he said, "I love that move so much." He had been taking damage on and off for hours, making a lot of copies, and paying a lot for the Odama Rasengan. He was really paying for it. But he still had to do something. "Now Liquid needs to open up," he said with a hint of anger, before I cut that cockpit open like a tin can." Rex, which hadn't moved in a while, moved the laser under its belly a little and fired at Naruto. He had to dodge by diving to the side, which sent him to the ground. Rex raised one leg off the ground and put its spiked foot directly over Naruto's body, ready to crush him like an insect. Before it could hit him, someone jumped under Naruto, kicked him out of the way, and then caught Rex's foot and held it up. Naruto's body slid over to Snake, who got down on his knees and helped him get back up. He then turned to look at the cyborg ninja who had caught Rex's foot and asked, "Gray Fox? So it really is you?" Gray Fox said, "A name from a long time ago. It sounds better than Deep Throat, though." His real face could be seen through the open visor in his helmet. "You two don't seem to be looking so well," he said in a calm, raspy voice. Naruto, all he did was stand up straight and flip Gray Fox off. Liquid, on the other hand, couldn't see but could hear perfectly and knew who had Rex's foot caught as he stomped again. "I'll send you back to hell." Rex stomped his foot again, and this time Gray Fox jumped out of the way just in time for the foot to land right next to Naruto and Snake. As the blind Rex stomped toward them, the three of them split up. Gray Fox and Snake went their separate ways to find safety, while Naruto kept trying his best to get Liquid to open the cockpit. "Fox, why? What do you want from me?" Snake asked him angrily. "Death has locked me up," Gray Fox said. "Only you can set me free." "Get away from this, Fox," Snake said in a tense voice. "What about Naomi? She's set on getting back at you." Snake could see the man's anger in his eyes as he named his sister. "You're the only one who can stop her," Swan said. As gunshots could be heard, Gray Fox said, "I can't." This was Naruto's ongoing battle with the blind but still dangerous Metal Gear Rex. Even though it couldn't see, it was still very dangerous to get close to, with its machine gun firing randomly and its laser running amok everywhere he could get to. He had to stay away. Snake wasn't going to accept a stupid answer to the question. Why not? He had been getting that for hours on end, so he had to get it from someone he was actually talking to. "Because I'm the one who killed her parents," Gray Fox finally blurted out, bringing Snake to silence. "I was young then and couldn't bring myself to kill her too. I felt so horrible I decided to take her with me. I raised her like she was my own blood to soothe my own guilty conscience. Even now she thinks of me as her brother Ayuro even when I'm like this," he said, referencing his cybernetic body. "From the outside we might have seemed like a happy brother and sister, but every time I looked at her I saw her parents' eyes staring back at me. So tell her for me. Tell her I'm the one who did it," he begged. The crazy Liquid was still in Rex. "I know you're still here. Just die already," he yelled, pointing his guns away from Naruto so he couldn't see him. He ended up shooting at the fuel drums and ammunition boxes all over the hangar. One of the drums blew up near Naruto, throwing him off the wall. "Liquid's got a horseshoe up his ass," Naruto thought to himself as he saw Liquid still shooting around the area. He got up, wiped the dirt off his face, and glared at the hurt Metal Gear. "Open the cockpit, Liquid, so I can slit your goddamn throat." As bullets hit the metal walls of the hangar, Gray Fox and Snake had to duck down. "We're almost out of time," he said. "Here's one last gift from Deep Throat." He then looked out at Rex and rushed from behind their cover. "I'll stop it from moving." Snake yelled, "Fox!" But his friend and former partner ran out and dove out of the way of Rex's random fire. While avoiding the flying bullets and missiles, Gray Fox got close enough for Rex's laser to hit him and easily cut off his left arm. Still, he didn't slow down, and to avoid being killed by a second laser blast before it was over, he jumped and stuck to the wall, just like Naruto had done earlier. The only difference was that he wasn't far enough away from Rex for this to work, and he didn't get high enough, so Rex's head hit him in the wall. Gray Fox wrapped his arms around the cockpit, beak of Rex, which was crushing him, and tried to stop it from killing him completely. The bloody mess from being smashed against the wall was clear to see. Rex's PA system picked up Liquid's voice making fun of him. "In the Middle East, we don't hunt foxes. We hunt jackals. We use royal harriers instead of foxhounds. So let's see how strong that exoskeleton is," he said as he pushed the cyborg from behind. "Snake, are you going to just sit there and watch him die?" Naruto growled and ran over to Gray Fox's severed arm. He freed the sword that he saw stuck in it and took it for himself as he ran faster toward Gray Fox. That man, Cyborg, He might not have known. He didn't know him very well and had fought him once, but 2 years ago, he saved his behind and was helping him fight Liquid and Rex, so that was more than enough for him to call him a friend. Liquid moved away as Gray Fox got closer, letting him fall to the ground on a raised ledge. His body was heavily bleeding, and electricity was also flowing through it. Gray Fox. Both Naruto and Snake yelled at the same time as the cockpit door opened. He saw Naruto coming at him quickly, so he fired the machine gun turret at him to stop him. "You won't get close, boy," Gray Fox yelled at Naruto. Then he turned to Snake, who was holding the ranged weapon, and said, "Do it now, Snake. Fire the stinger." Fox was standing on the ledge next to Liquid's open cockpit. Liquid made fun of him and said, "Can you really shoot? You'll kill him too." Snake quickly raised the stinger and let it lock onto his side view of Liquid's open cockpit, but he couldn't finish the job. Not with a Gray Fox still alive nearby. "I can't do it," he thought quickly to himself. Gray Fox barely spoke as he tried to get Snake to shoot. "Now I can finally die in front of you." He sounded a little better about it. "After Zanzibar I was taken from the battle. Neither truly alive nor truly dead. An everlasting shadow in the world of lights. But soon, it will finally end." Liquid then used the top of his open cockpit to scrape Gray Fox off the ledge and to the ground below. Liquid yelled, "Die!" as he picked up Rex's foot and stomped it down on top of Gray Fox, crushing his lower body under the Metal Gear's full weight just for fun. Mean because Gray Fox wasn't dead yet, his electric body was strong. He was strong enough to say goodbye. "Snake, we're not tools of the government or anyone else. Fighting was the only thing I was ever good at, but at least I always fought for what I believed in. Goodbye." He then turned his weak head towards Naruto and stomped him, letting the sword fall from his hand. "And I do hope that you find your own reason for fighting. I could always tell from the look in your eyes that you still have not." Liquid lifted Rex's leg and gave Gray Fox one last stomp, which covered his whole body. He opened his mouth to say something else to the youngest soldier in the room. Snake and Naruto could only look at the huge pool of blood under Rex's foot and roar with joy at having killed its first person with a weapon. "Fox!" The roar woke Snake up and brought him back to the real world. "Fool!" Liquid muttered as he moved away from the bloody mess that used to be Gray Fox. He prayed for death and it found him. "See? You can't protect anyone. You can't even protect your own." Naruto stabbed Liquid in the side of the neck, cutting off his speech. Liquid choked on his words and made a small noise. He then pulled out the knife and glared down at Naruto while bleeding heavily from the wound. As he opened his mouth to scold him, he stopped when he saw a red aura around him that looked like a fox with an energy tail. He couldn't help but try to hold back tears as he thought to himself, first it was Master Miller, and now it's Gray Fox. Since years, he hadn't cried, and he was not going to let Liquid enjoy seeing him do it there. As he watched Gray Fox die, he could almost see Miller's dead body right in front of his eyes. "You're going to die, Liquid," Naruto said in a low voice as the Kyuubi's chakra bubbled around him. He could no longer keep his anger from getting in the way. He screamed, "I'm going to cut your bleeding heart out," but his voice was rougher than usual. He picked up Gray Fox's sword from the ground and ran straight at Liquid at least twice as fast as he had been going before. Naruto's strange abilities were getting scarier, so Liquid didn't want to mess with them anymore. "After that last little surprise he gave me, I don't need to see anymore," she said. It was better to be blind than dead in this case. As he closed the door to his cockpit to get ready to defend himself against whatever Naruto planned to do, he could hear metal ringing and then broken whirring. When he looked up, the opening to his cockpit was blocked from closing by Gray Fox's sword, which Naruto had thrown like a javelin. "What?" he asked out loud. As the Stinger missile hit Liquid's cockpit and caused him to be hit by the blast, Snake had no problem waiting to fire it. He was already hurt badly from the explosion. He had not been able to get a clean shot at his twin brother since he joined Rex. At this point, Liquid didn't know what to do. It was hard for him to focus because his brother was firing missiles at him while he was wide open and vulnerable, and Naruto had already shown that he could climb up around his open cockpit and attack him directly. He also didn't want to find out what that red aura really meant. "It's not over yet," Liquid yelled. "I won't die here like this. Not when I'm so close." The explosion had rendered Rex's controls mostly useless, but he wouldn't give up the ghost in this case. Rex stumbled along until it just fell over all the way to the ground and stopped moving. The red streak that Liquid knew to be Naruto came rushing across the room at him with murder in his eyes as he tried to get up. He saw his life flash before his eyes. Whether it was lucky or unlucky, the huge metal gear exploded violently through the hangar, with Liquid still largely in charge. The sheer force of the machine's destruction threw Snake and Naruto away, first engulfing Naruto's body in flames because he was close by and then throwing him away as well. He heard in his head before he opened his eyes again, "Do you see now how much you need me in this world?" The explosion of that death machine a euro. Do you think you would have been able to defeat it or even survive it if I hadn't given you more power? And that was just a taste of what I can give you. He was trying to take credit for himself. He didn't need any help. In Naruto's eyes, working together beat working alone against Rex. He would have kept hitting the hull over and over until he ran out of energy if he hadn't worked with Snake. Liquid would not have been able to get close enough to Odama Rasengan to break the radome that let the cockpit be seen if he hadn't been distracted to turn around. As his anger grew, the Kyuubi did nothing but try to change him after Grey Fox was killed. He was about to charge like a dumb berserker. He didn't want that jerk's chakra to flow into his body. He didn't want the Kyuubi to feel good or like a winner because he wanted to kill Liquid, even if he had the power up. It wasn't because of anything the demon did, he just wanted to get back at him. The Kyuubi wasn't going to go too far, no matter what. Naruto laughed to himself as he felt his own blood covering his head. "Yeah. You're a great blast shield. So why don't you get this fucking hunk of metal off of me before that fuel leaks over here and sets us on fire if you're so great?" He made a joke in his head. When Rex went off, a piece of the catwalk fell and pinned Naruto under it. What was wrong? He was fine, or at least as fine as he could be with hundreds of pounds of dead weight on top of him. What was wrong was that the hangar was on fire and the extra fuel was leaking everywhere. He was so hurt that he couldn't even move his left arm. Every time he tried, pain shot through him. Even though he couldn't move his legs, he could still feel them. He had to leave even though things could have been worse. Snock. Before he heard a thud, Naruto heard Liquid yell Snake's name. Liquid may have given him this receipt for kicking him off the catwalk 50 feet earlier. Now it was time for Naruto to get out of trouble. "Rasengan, don't fail me now," he muttered as he formed the jutsu in his good hand and tried to push some of the broken catwalk off of him. "Ow," Naruto said as he pushed enough of the debris off of him to slide free. When he turned around to see who had called his name, he saw Meryl running toward him with Snake. "Naruto, are you okay?" she asked. Naruto slowly stood back up, his left arm now mostly useless. "Pretty much," he said. He looked at Snake and saw many cuts and bruises on his face. "You look like you got kicked in the behind." Snake told Naruto, who was covered in blood and had a broken arm, "It's time to go, kid. There's a parking garage to the west of here. We need to get out of here before a nuclear attack. Meryl and Otacon got us a ride out of here." Naruto pulled his left arm up to his right and asked, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. What?" He was angry. "But we just won, didn't we? Why the hell is a nuclear strike coming? Where's the fucking loyalty?" Snake told Meryl, "I couldn't tell you, kid, but we need to get the hell out of here." They moved toward the small door at the west end of the hangar. Naruto wasn't following them, so they turned around and saw him running back toward the burning Rex. "What are you doing? Come on, let's go." He kept running toward Rex and said, "I'll catch up, I promise, just get going already." Snake barked and let Naruto decide for himself. Is there a reason for him to be behind? If so, it was his choice. It was clear that he was an adult and had been very helpful the whole time. Meryl yelled at Naruto, "Stop being so stupid. Why did he make that awful noise? He told them to leave without him, right? How did he think he was going to get out of there?" Naruto ran away from them without turning around to face them. "Get her out of here, Snake. I may have broken my arm, but I don't need both of them to knock her out and make you two leave," he yelled as he ran toward Rex. Snake grabbed Meryl by the arm and asked, "What? Are you just going to let him go?" "Naruto," she yelled. Snake wouldn't let her go and said, "It's his choice. He's pretty much done this all by himself from the beginning. At least respect him enough to let him finish this on his own if that's what he wants." Meryl frowned but nodded as she led Snake out of the small door and toward the parking garage that stood in their way out. Snake stopped at the door and yelled back into the hangar, "Kid, you'll get nuked if you don't leave here in 10 minutes. That was his last words. They finally saw Otacon sitting behind the wheel of a jeep as they ran through the halls that led them there. "Run," he yelled, waving his hand at them. Snake climbed up on a machine gun turret in the back, and Meryl jumped into the passenger seat. She did so just in time, too, because genome soldiers rushed into the room from a door next to it, setting themselves up almost perfectly for Snake to kill them before they could even try to stop him. Otacon then crashed the jeep through a garage door and flew through the tunnel behind it that led to the surface. Snake got his machine gun ready for the barriers he could see set up ahead that they would have to break through to get out of the tunnels. Naruto ran out of the room through the hall he had seen Meryl and Snake leave through. He was covered in more soot and burns than ever. Gray Fox's unique sword was strapped to his back between his Dragonov and his MP5K. Naruto wasn't going to forget about the person who did so much to help them win today, even if only he and Snake knew what he had done. Along the way to the parking garage, he heard the roar of an engine starting up, which made him feel better. Snake, Meryl, and Otacon hadn't left yet, so he was able to get a ride. When he got there, though, he heard the jeep pulling out of the garage and saw the broken door at the exit. But when he saw the driver's blonde hair, he clenched his teeth and said, "Liquid, why doesn't he just die already? Who is he, the jerk Terminator?" As he looked around, he thought to himself, and that jerk stole the last jeep. What a jerk. Naruto ran to the middle of the room and quickly looked around for anything that could help. Then he saw something that made his eyes widen. Holy crap, I thought he got rid of this thing. He ran to the corner of the garage and picked up a smooth-looking board that looked like it was made of light metal. It was 3 inches thick and a little shorter than his own height. My platform board. I thought he shipped this thing back to R&D. Naruto was a Foxhound probationary member for a whole year, which meant that they used him to test any new weapons and equipment that they came up with. If they liked it, they would test it themselves after seeing him use it, but most of the time, everything he tried was broken and didn't work at all. This looked like one of the failed experiments, but Naruto didn't want to throw away the version that worked. The board was based on old Soviet flying platforms, which were scouting vehicles meant to get to places that are hard to get to on foot. The only difference was that instead of using your hands to move the board, the person using it could use their feet and legs, leaving their hands free to use their weapons. Naruto tried this for the first time in early December and crashed really badly. He kept it as a Christmas present for himself instead of giving it back to research and development as planned by Liquid or anyone else. He was determined to make it work, and he did. He had time to do nothing at Shadow Moses, so all he did to pass the time was practice on the board, which worked. By January, it was clear that he hadn't returned it and was keeping it in his room. Liquid took it away as illegal goods, and Naruto thought that was the last time he saw it. After a few weeks, Naruto found his lost tool in the parking garage that he hadn't been able to get to before. It looks like Liquid's plans were too far along for him to return or get rid of it. Yes, it still works. He began to fire up the board and jump on it right away, determined to leave the base and chase Liquid down. Liquid Snake, who was carrying a FAMAS, got his own ride out of the base and chased Snake, Meryl, and Otacon down the escape tunnel, shooting at them and smashing his jeep into theirs as he did his best to kill his brother and the other people he was after. Snake was impressed with Liquid's driving skills as he fired his machine gun turret at her. The man held onto the FAMAS and shot back, almost hitting all of them several times. This kept his jeep running and kept him in good enough shape to stay in pursuit. He did all of this with one hand on the wheel. Liquid got close enough to hit the back of Snake's jeep, which threw off Snake's machine gun aim. He then pulled away, making it impossible for Snake to get a clear shot at him. When Liquid fired again, Meryl dropped her gun and ducked down in her seat, but she didn't miss. When Liquid got close to the enemy jeep, he ducked in and out of tunnel pillars at just the right time to be able to sneak through, hit Snake's jeep, and duck out through another pillar to avoid Snake's fire. As real daylight could be seen at the end of the tunnel, Liquid sped ahead of the enemy jeep that was full of people and things. He spun in front of them and cut them off with his own jeep, ducking his head just as they crashed and flipped over in the deep snow of the morning after the snowstorm. Otacon was thrown a short distance from the jeep and passed out in the snow, but Snake and Meryl were trapped under it and couldn't get out. The crash itself had made them lose their bearings, so he asked her, "Meryl, are you okay?" while holding his head. And Meryl said, "Yeah. I'm just a little shook up. She tried to get out, but her legs got stuck in the snow under the flipped jeep. It's no good, I can't move, she thought. What happened to Liquid? She asked the wrecked jeep across the way. Snake said with some hope, Liquid has to be dead. Since the crash, he hadn't seen or heard from him, but everyone else was fine. Then he heard metal thudding and shifting, which made him bite his lip and say, "Oh." Liquid got out of the back of his useless jeep, limping but still holding his famous in one hand. Snake. He screamed as he slowly lost blood from his face and bare torso. He stomped over to Snake and Meryl, who were stuck and couldn't get out. He laughed at how helpless they looked. Before he could get closer to kill them, he heard whirring coming from the tunnel. When he turned around, he saw a board fly out of the tunnel, miss him by a mile, and land farther away. What was that supposed to? He was about to ask, but a sudden sharp pain stopped him. Naruto stood behind Liquid, between Snake and Meryl. He held Gray Fox's sword in one hand and pushed it downwards, piercing Liquid on the left side through the collar area. He gasped and fell to his knees. While Naruto kept a tight grip on the sword and seemed to twist it even more to make sure the man died for good, he said, "Gray Fox and Master Miller say hi, Liquid. I'd say you'd have found that out soon enough, but you're going to be too busy burning in hell to care." "You stupid brat," Liquid tried to say, but his blood started to rise in his throat and flow out of his mouth. "You're still a child." "Whatever," Naruto said in a low voice as he pulled the sword out of Liquid. Blood shot out of the sword and hit Naruto in the white snow on the ground. "And you're still just dead," he said as Liquid's body fell forward and the snow crunched under him. As Naruto held the sword that had killed Liquid in his hand, all he could do was stare down at her body. He killed the person who cut him off from one of his few real connections to the world, but it didn't make him feel better. Even being mad was too much for him because he knew how painful it was to kill Liquid. What now? He looked up at the sun and sighed deeply as he went to get his board out of the snow. "What do I do now?" he asked himself. He told himself this. Should he really have been reprocessed and put somewhere else? They're going to nuke the base, so don't worry about that. He didn't care about this country at all. Why would he fight for them if they were just going to throw him away like he was nothing? After that, he could see Liquid's first point. Even though he could see and understand, that didn't mean he agreed or felt bad about stopping it. While Liquid was still a son of a bitch, the world was a better place without his sneaky behind treating him and his family like pieces in a game. As he thought about these things, someone put their hand on his hurt shoulder, making him hiss in pain and twist his face. "Sorry kid, I forgot," Snake said, apologizing as he messed with Naruto's arm. "Well, we're officially dead." Naruto asked, "What?" He then said, "Damn, the nukes, I forgot." Snake laughed and said, "No, not literally. I said officially. The Colonel faked my and Meryl's deaths so that no one would try to come after us in another cover-up. There's no nuke coming." The man behind the cover-up was acting alone, the Secretary of Defense. He sounded like he didn't believe that excuse, but since he was about to disappear again, there was no way to find out more than what he had been told. "What about you?" The tone of Naruto's voice didn't sound amused. "If anyone wants to hide this, they can try to find me. They better not expect to go home, though, Dadbayo." He sat down on his newly freed board and looked up at Snake. "I still have questions, Snake. There are still things I need to know. The only thing I do know is that I'm not going to find my answers being a US soldier." Snake asked Meryl as she brought Otakon back to the real world, "So what are you going to do? I really don't think there's going to be a problem with you getting discharged after this." He had been doing this for how many years? Yes, he could officially leave, but he probably wouldn't go through official channels anyway. Naruto shrugged. "I really don't think you should know what I'm going to do." He added, "No one needs to know what I'm going to do next. It's better for everyone that way." Meryl walked over at this point and caught the last words Naruto said. "Wait, you're not coming with us?" she asked in a confused tone. What was he going to do if he wasn't going with them? Where did he plan to go? "Are you going home?" Naruto honestly said, "I don't have a home to go back to." People around him felt bad for him for different reasons. "But there are still things I have to do." He stood back up and wiped the bloody sword off in the snow. Meryl frowned until she remembered what someone had just told her. She felt like she could start over, so she smiled and walked up to Naruto as he put the sword on his back and stood up on his board. Do you think you'll need a ghost following you around for whatever it is you're supposed to be doing? Raven-like, Snake looked at her with a smirk and asked, "Are you serious? You've only known me for 2 days. You can do anything you want now, and you want to go with me to get into more trouble?" Meryl replied with a confident nod. "Why?" Naruto asked Snake, who was backing away with his hands up in defense. But Snake didn't answer. A shrug came back from her. "What else am I going to go do? It looks like it was that easy." She was supposed to be dead, so Naruto let out a groan. She might fit in. He couldn't just leave her there if that's what she wanted, but maybe not. Snake didn't seem to be giving the girl any other choices. "You do know that this is a really stupid idea, don't you?" "Of course it's stupid," Meryl said with a smirk. "It involves you after all." She laughed at the glare he gave her after her joke. "Just take me with you. You'll need some help, right?" Naruto said, "Fine, you can come with me, but don't bring me down. I already have enough problems to deal with." He then jerked his head to the board he was standing on and said, "Get on, and watch the arm." "What are you going to do with that sword? Do you even know how to use that thing?" Meryl asked him as she quickly jumped on and grabbed him. And Naruto laughed and said, "It's a sword, not a jetpack. I'll figure it out." Then he looked down at Snake and asked, "And what are you going to do?" Snake smiled calmly and said, "I think I'm just going to live my life. However much time I have left. Who cares about the fox dye?" His thoughts continued. A speech Naomi had given him earlier had made him want to do that. He then put his hand on Naruto. "I have to say it was good to work with you, kid. Having you shoot at me instead of with me would have really sucked. I'd say it was a pleasure, but we both know that it wasn't." Naruto smiled and shook Snake's hand firmly. "Hey, you never know. We might run into each other some other time. It was great working with you, too, Solid Snake." He faked a salute and fired up the board, which made it pop off the ground, much to Meryl's surprise. "Take care of yourself," he said as he shot off on the board, flying over the landscape. With his glasses in place, Otacon could only watch as things went down. "Do you think they'll be okay?" he asked Snake. He was still scared of and angry at Naruto, but he couldn't deny that he had been a huge help. Snake smiled. "Yeah, those are some tough kids, Otacon. I wouldn't worry about them at all. They'll land on their feet no matter what happens." Coast of mainland Alaska, while later Johnny drove the jeep across the frozen ocean surface. The blizzard that had been going on for more than 24 hours had made it very cold. The call from Naruto that he was on his way to meet them made him feel better, not only because he wasn't sure he could hide out by himself, but also because Sniper Wolf's promise that Naruto would be there by sunrise was the only thing that kept him from passing out from fear. When he looked out over the frozen water, he saw a single figure flying across the ice quickly toward them. He tried to ignore her angry growl as he looked through the scope of Sniper Wolf's stolen rifle. Then he let out a loud shout, "It's him! It's the boss! He's here!" Sniper Wolf stopped staring at Johnny when she heard him say that. "But I think he's got someone with him." "Who is that?" he asked out loud. Not long after that, Naruto's board stopped right next to Johnny's jeep. He turned to the girl who was holding him and asked, "How was that?" "That was awesome, right?" The smile on his face showed that he loved his little personal transport. "This thing is great," he said. Meryl let go of Naruto from behind and shakily jumped off the board before he even turned off the power to it, just to get back to the ground faster. She was shaking from going so fast on the dangerous flying board. She told Naruto with a glare, "Never again. Never make me ride one of those things again." That thing scared her more than any motorcycle. He pointed at her and asked, "What are you thinking?" Johnny's eyes grew wide behind his balaclava, and Wolf couldn't take her eyes off of Meryl. "Boss, what is she doing here?" she asked him. With wide eyes, Meryl looked over at Johnny and Wolf. "You too?" she asked. "I thought you said you killed Sniper Wolf back when we ran into Otacon," she yelled at Naruto. Naruto shrugged. "I never said I killed her. You guys can decide for yourselves." He put his board in the back of the jeep and covered it with the tarp that had been over Wolf when she had been smuggled out. "I don't like killing my friends, and I protect them when I can. I saw a chance and I took it." It wasn't hard to tell that the three of them were angry with each other. To get Snake to start fighting, Wolf had hurt Meryl badly in a cruel way, and Johnny had been her prison guard. "Hey, chill out," he yelled, getting their full attention. "Wolf is still tied up, And Meryl says, "But she shot me 3 times in the arm and legs. She didn't even try to make it painless." Wolf laughed and said, "It could have been worse. And by the way, honey, it didn't matter where I shot you. Bullets hurt when they go through you." She said this in a baby voice to the soldier who was several years younger than her. Wolf was tied up, and Meryl tried to attack him, but Naruto caught her and threw her back with his strong arm. She tried to get past him again, but he kicked her legs out from under her and knocked her to the ground, planting his foot on her chest and staring down at her seriously. "I said chill out. Right now you guys are all officially dead, except for me and maybe Johnny, but that's different." He looked up and saw Sniper Wolf's smug look. He pointed at her and said, "And stop making people mad. I made this nonsense plan, so that means I'm more or less responsible for all of you a euro. Cammy, help me." He kept trying to push the thought out of his mind so they would kiss and make up. This was supposed to be a serious moment that showed who was in charge. "Just let me up. I promise I won't strangle Wolf," Meryl said as she tried to get out from under his boot on her chest. She didn't know why it was so hard to move. He rolled his eyes, but he took his foot off of her and walked over to Wolf with his sword on his back to free her. Instead of asking him where he got that, she looked at the weak limb hanging at his right side and asked, "Your arm?" She looked into his eyes and saw that he was mostly covered in blood, some of it his own and some not. "What in God's name did you do on that island?" He had a frown on his face because he knew she cared about him. He smiled at her and said, "Don't worry about me, Wolf. I'll be fine if I can just make a sling or something." He wasn't going to the hospital for that nonsense. No matter what, they had to get somewhere, and they were pretty much on time. They had to get away from Shadow Moses Island as quickly as possible. "Right now we need to get you guys to Russia. I know someone who would let you guys hide and they know who Wolf is," he said. "Gerlukovich mercenaries?" Wolf asked, and Naruto nodded. "Ah, I see." She already knew what Naruto's plan was, since Johnny had told her what it was when she woke up from her coma. They still saw Wolf as a foxhound friend because after the ransom was paid, the two groups worked together on many things. They would definitely be safe there with Johnny and her, but Naruto and Meryl were still a problem. "But what about you two? They know you were supposed to." She started to say, "They don't even know who Meryl is." Naruto cut her off and told her to sit down in the back with Wolf. This was done so that they could work out their problems quickly while glaring at each other. "And I'm not going to Russia with you." This got everyone's attention. "At least not yet. I still need to go a few places." He ended somberly, looking away from everyone after hitting his head lightly off the seat once. Wolf ran his hand through Johnny's hair as he got into the driver's seat and started the Jeep back up, getting ready to leave. "What's wrong, little Proby?" she asked him in a soothing voice. "Tell me what's wrong." He didn't answer this time. He just kept staring at the slowly rising sun in a way. It scared her. He might have been worn out from all of this. Wolf had always been good at making people feel better, and Naruto wanted to thank her for that. Still, this wasn't a simple problem like his temper getting out of hand. This was much worse. Liquid killed Master Miller and imitated him to get the drop on Snake on Kodak. Wolf's hand stopped. She didn't know Liquid had gone that far to get an edge during Snake's infiltration, and she thought it was a huge waste of time. What if Snake hadn't come? Then he pretty much killed one of Naruto's most important people to make sure Naruto had nowhere else to go, whether he had joined him or not. The jerk said, "I'm so sorry, Proby." After the adrenaline wore off and Naruto realized how serious things were, he said, "That's why I can't just go right with you guys. I have to go somewhere first, and it's too dangerous to take you guys with me just for this. You guys don't have a stake in it, so I'll get you guys out first, then I'll take care of my own business." And that was the end of it. And no one was going to ask him what that business was. With Naruto, no one knew what would happen. In March 2005, 1 month later, in Los Angeles, California. If there was one word that could describe her, it would be drained. Catherine found out a month ago that her father had died when she got a call. That was it. She and her mother were not told anything about the body or when it would be given to them. They were not even told how he died. At first, her mother was shocked and tried to comfort her for a week, but it was clear that the news hadn't hit her nearly as hard as it did her daughter. As for Catherine's mother, things got better quickly, but Catherine still couldn't handle it. But in the end, she had to think about it, and one thought kept coming to her mind. How her older brother would have handled it. His first mistake would have been to find out what had happened, but she was only 16 and in high school. In fact, she had no way to do that. She had no connections, no knowledge about what might have happened, and nothing else. Like any other girl, she was fine. The second thing was that she hadn't heard from her older brother in about 5 months. Not a single word. Someone must have known where he was or what he was doing. How could she have known? He might have even had the same bad luck as her father. They wouldn't even tell her anything about a soldier who was no longer serving, so why would they tell her about an active soldier who had been doing secret missions for years? Letting out a sigh as she walked home from tennis practice after school, she told herself that she didn't care anymore. At first, going to school in California was great. She could do all the things she hadn't been able to do in Alaska, and she could tell Naruto and her dad about everything she was doing. She always tried her best to make them proud. She was now really dragging. Before her father died, she was getting straight A's, but lately they've been really struggling because she doesn't care about them. It wasn't important at all. Also, she didn't have anyone to push her, since Miller couldn't scold her on the phone and her mother was often away at work, this being one of those long periods of time. When she got inside, she left her backpack at the door. She wasn't going to touch it until Monday morning, when she had to leave for school. Instead, she chose to bring her duffel bag upstairs to her room. At the top of the stairs, she saw that her bedroom and the bathroom next to it were both lit up. She tried not to gasp. Before she came to California, she borrowed a small black kunai from her big brother's room in Alaska years ago. She put her bag down and slowly reached inside it to get it. After taking off her tennis shoes and walking down the hall in her socks, Catherine slowly walked the way she had picked up to avoid making noise on the hard floors. She held her kunai in a reverse grip and raised her free arm in a possible defensive stance. When she got to the wall next to the bathroom, she leaned against it because that's where the shadow was coming from. As she got ready to quickly confront the intruder, a voice stopped her and said, "I already knew you were there, kitty. Don't you know you can never sneak up on me?" She let out a soft gasp and dropped the kunai, making it clatter on the floor. "Hey, don't drop weapons," the voice said. There were times when she didn't know what to say. "Ayaniki," she finally said hesitantly as she turned the doorknob and saw Naruto standing at the sink in her bathroom, washing his face. He was wearing normal clothes, like blue jeans and an orange shirt with sunbursts on it. Naruto asked with a quiet but amused voice, "Since when did you start calling me that?" He smiled while washing his face, and added, "But it's really good to hear your voice again." He was about to turn to Catherine when she slammed her much smaller body into his and took a tight hug. As she sobbed in silence, he wrapped his arms around her and gently rubbed her back. "I'm sorry," he said. "What are you sorry for?" He was lost for words. "I'm sorry I couldn't help Master Miller. I'm sorry I couldn't tell her anything about it without putting her in great danger. I'm sorry I haven't seen her in almost a year and a half. Are you sorry you left and joined all of his crazy nonsense in the first place?" He had no idea. He probably would have said any of those things that made her cry if he had more than one choice. He could only do so much. "I got the guy who did it," he told her quietly. "It might help her feel better to let her know, right?" He said again. "I don't know if that helps or not, I'm sorry." He didn't know what to say instead. While she buried her face in his chest and quietly cried, she told him, "Don't say sorry. You didn't do anything wrong. You never did." She turned her face up to his and smiled brightly, even though she was crying. "It's just a euro. I'm so happy to see you again. I was so scared. I was scared that you had been captured, hurt again like last time, or even worse. I can't believe you're actually here." He held her out in front of him and looked her over. He hadn't seen her in over a year. Her pretty green eyes were a little puffy from crying, and her curly blonde hair was pulled back into a ponytail. This was probably because she had just come from practice. Her white tennis dress had the back ripped off at the moment. He thought it was amazing how much she had grown every time he saw her. It confused her when Naruto walked past her and looked out into the hall. "Is your mom here?" he asked in a weak voice. If anyone asked him why he broke in through a back window on the second floor, he didn't want to answer. He couldn't tell a woman who didn't know or like him anything about that. Catherine wiped her eyes to calm down and said, "She won't be back until the middle of next week." She didn't think it was cool to cry in front of him. "You're not going to stay here that long either way, are you?" She asked, as if she already knew the answer. I just came to see you, Kitty. He wanted to say yes to make her happy, but it wasn't that easy. He hadn't missed being a genin in Konoha when things were easy more than he did at that moment. It was at least clear where he could go to feel safe. He wasn't sure where he was going, but he knew what he had to do. I won't be staying that long, thaw Euro, I can't. And staying near Los Angeles wasn't part of what he had to do. Catherine let out a long sigh of disappointment before she grabbed Naruto's hand, dragged him down the hall to her room, and pointed to the bed. That made him tilt his head in confusion, but she rolled her eyes, pushed him down, and curled up on the bed with him before he could ask why he was there. Before he said, what the hell? He let her yawn and pull herself closer to him. Although he had been with Sniper Wolf just once, he was used to this kind of thing. This girl, on the other hand, was like his sister. It was strange. You just said you won't be here for long, Catherine said without opening her eyes. So I'm going to enjoy the time I have with you. Who knows if you'll come back next time? She looked at him with a raised eyebrow and asked, what's wrong? You used to let me do things like this all the time when we were younger. Yeah, before you got hot. You're not so little anymore, damn it. Naruto yelled in his head, and his face showed it. Now if he had said that, so, you just want me to lay here while you sleep. Would have been really strange. Yeah, Catherine said in a happy, soft voice. Just go to sleep, Aniki, or tell me a story, he said. Naruto laughed and tangled her legs around his to make her more comfortable. I thought you were too old for any story I could tell you, he said. Let's just say I feel like I'm little again a Euro and I've needed something to cheer me up. She poked him in the chest. Now take your pick, sleep or story, just don't leave me alone again. Naruto smiled and said, fine. He would take care of her even if he was on a different continent if she was the only person he had left. He also had to keep other people safe, and he would do that for everyone. It was time for him to grow up and stop being just a child. But he couldn't stay with his sister the way she wanted to at this time. He could still enjoy his time, though. Okay, I get it. I don't think I've told you the story about the Forest of Death before, he said. Voice of Revolver Ocelot said over the phone, yes sir, the whole unit was wiped out. Those two are still alive, and the kid made it out alive and went to who knows where. There was silence for a minute before he spoke again. The Vector. Yes sir. Fox Die should become activated soon enough, right on schedule. He stopped talking to answer more questions. I recovered all of Rex's dummy warhead data from Solid Snake just as you asked. Euro. No sir. My cover is still intact. Nobody knows who I really am. The DARPA chief knew who I was, but I got rid of him before he could do any harm. He waited for a moment to listen and then spoke up, yes. The inferior clone was the winner after all. He laughed and said, that's right. Until the very end Liquid thought he was the inferior one. He then stopped talking because the person he was talking to said, yes sir, I agree completely. It takes a well-balanced person like yourself to rule the world. Euro. As he spoke again, his voice took on a happy tone, yes sir. Thank you. Goodbye, Mr. President. No sir. No one knows that you're really the third one. Solidus. Now what should I do about the woman? Keep an eye on her. Yes sir. He listened again. Click.
I will continue the story in next part. Till then, we weeb offline.